welcome to our Zoom conversation with artist Jess Johnson, who's joined us from her Brooklyn studio over in New York. Hi, Jess.
Hey, Danny, nice to see you.
Thanks for joining us to have a bit of a chat about everything, your work, your practice, life, the world as it currently stands, and everything else. Yeah, thanks so much for joining us with this Zoom chat. I guess we've got our big 50th anniversary exhibition on at the moment, and the work behind me, which was your National Works on Paper winning work from 2014, Mysteria Mystica Maxima, is part of the reason that we're having a bit of a chat. We've got about 140 artworks on display in our current collection exhibition. And yeah, these Zoom chats are a great opportunity just to talk to artists that we have in our collection, to hear a bit more about their work and to explore other projects that they're working on. So looking forward to chatting over the next 20, 25 minutes and hearing what's been going on.
It's nice to see that drawing again.
Yeah, it's held up pretty well. It's an absolute beautiful drawing. Maybe we'll start with the drawing a little bit, and I guess it's interesting when you look at some of the imagery in that work, how some of those images reappear across other works that you do, like in terms of especially the waveforms and the humanoid figures and the other symbols that sort of reappear in your work. Do you want to start by talking about some of that symbolism or the imagery that you work with?
Yeah, there's tongue-tied now. I think I mean, I can talk about the symbolism and that particular drawing. Yeah, there's not a lot of conscious decision making or thought that goes into the imagery for the most part, but it's more a amalgam of images that have come before and then cannibalizing the imagery, making new hybrids from it, doing a lot of like sort of cut and paste collaging of the figures and the hybrids and the deities and the symbolism and what have you. Yeah, in terms of what's in that drawing, I think that was maybe one of the first times I drew those waves like that. They've reoccurred quite a lot since then. Also, the daisy chain figures of the figures grasping each other by their genitals. I've done that a few times since. I remember really, yeah, kind of. That image kind of really zinged for me at the time when I drew it. The gargoyle kind of deities that are spewing chains and worms, that's something that's become quite common in my work as well. But yeah, that particular year that I drew that, was it 2014, did you say?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. That was a really prolific year for me, and a lot of I think I was just churning out stuff, and a lot of the works that I made, I think I was at the Gertrude Street Studios at the time. A lot of those works were really foundational in my work over the last several years. Yeah.
Yeah, and I love the obviously there's a range of text within the drawing as well. So there's contacting the DMT machine. So there's always these sort of hidden messages or this subterranean ideas that are ticking away in that. And I was doing a bit of research when I wrote about this work for our collection publication, that it was referencing this powerful psychedelic drug DMT that seemed to have this sort of crazy hallucinogenic effects where people would see these or be visited by these elf characters, which sort of summed up this beautiful coming together of all this imagery quite nicely.
Yeah, there's a real bizarre like commonality of experience with that people experience on DMT, and people quite often talk about encountering these figures which they feel very much come from outside their own psyche. And yeah, there's Terence McKenna, who's like a very interesting psychonaut thinker. I used to listen to a lot of his sort of free form lectures. He would talk about the DMT experience quite often in his lectures, and he would refer to them as the machine owls, because these entities can be made up of like this self-generating, incredibly psychedelic geometry. And it's so little like turns of phrase like that, which I just kind of pick up and get stuck in my head like a little thought worm, and end up appearing in the drawings. And quite often, like the phrase or the text might just be the starting point, which will give me like the tonal feeling of the drawing or the imagery as I work on the composition next.
Yeah. You were speaking before about how 2014 was quite a prolific point in time for you. I guess from where you are now, over in the United States, do you want to talk a little bit about, I guess, the last 6 years, really? Like it's a lot has changed in that time since you won the National Works on Paper. What have been some of the sort of key things for you, and how did you end up over in the States? That's sort of, it'd be good to hear that, how that all came about as well.
Yeah, well, 2014, like I said, I was a resident at the Gertrude Street Studios, and I only really started drawing intensively, I think it was in about 2012, so had only really been drawing for a couple of years. Prior to that, I worked as a freelance installer, where I know you from, Danny, from those days.
Many an install together.
And then I also ran a space called Hell Gallery with my partner at the time, who's an artist still in Melbourne called Jordan Morani. And through running Hell Gallery, I used to hand draw the exhibition flyers for all of the shows, and also do the flyers for like music performances and gigs and what have you that we'd have there. And I think I kind of really did, probably having that kind of freedom and poster form through doing Hell Gallery, I kind of gained a lot of confidence or developed my drawing style. And then post Hell Gallery, when it eventually shut down, I had, it had taken up a huge amount of time, and I suddenly had all this, time that I used to spend on Hell Gallery, which I wanted to like funnel into my own drawing practice. And so that was in 2012 where I started drawing really intensively and taking a step back from installing other people's artworks. And then, luckily I got a Gertrude Street studio residency, which really kind of supercharged things. And I decided to, just step back from installing completely and just draw full time. And so I really made super good use of those 2 years I was at Gertrude Street. And then I also started getting a few institutional shows like Melbourne Now at the NGV. I was in Primavera at the MCA in Sydney, and then I won the Mornington Drawing Award, and all of these things happened within a space of like 5 months or so. And also did a residency in Tokyo as well, I think for 3 months in 2014. And then 2015 was kind of just the same, where it was a lot of momentum and exhibitions, and each kind of project or opportunity I got seemed to kind of be a bit bigger than the one before. And then what prompted the move to New York? It was just like, I think there was this feeling of momentum, and I was doing, I was pushing things as far as I thought I could go, and I just wanted to kind of step into the unknown a bit, and it was like to challenge myself in another way, where I could come to New York, start from scratch again, and see what I could make of things here. I also had the benefit of my mother is American, but she'd moved to New Zealand in her early 20s, so I had citizenship through her, and so it meant I was able to move to New York and live and work. So I also got the Green Street Studio Residency. I was one of the last artists, I think the second to last artist that got that residency. That was a fantastic launching pad to land into in New York, because I had this beautiful palatial studio in Soho for the first 3 months, and then had to move out of that into a tiny little shoebox in Chinatown. And then I'm just kind of filling all of this with too much information. So,
we might come back to New York in a second, but just that period between sort of 2012 and sort of 2014-15, just thinking back to your some of your earlier sort of drawings, and that illustrative style seemed to be heavily influenced from sort of zine culture and sort of comic books, and obviously there was a science fiction element as well. But some of those early illustrative works, in terms of the gigs and the exhibition flyers, were much more sort of free-form and organic, you could say, in terms of their style. And even to getting to this work in 2014, which seems much tighter and much more sort of has a really pulls everything together in a very sort of constructed world in a way. Was there something that made that sort of transition from drawing as quite a free-form, organic sort of form to really tightening it up into these much more sort of geometric, hallucinogenic sort of images in a way?
Yeah, it's interesting to think about that, because when I do go back to look at the drawings that I was doing in those early stages, there's like certainly there's the density of pattern and elements which are similar. They're definitely not as controlled, and there's just kind of this impenetrable, or like just the spewing of stuff onto the page. And
was that partly because, I guess, in terms of especially the exhibition program at Hell was pretty fast in a way, so you constantly had to produce these sort of at a short turnaround, these sort of images?
Yeah, and I didn't really, I guess I didn't, how would you put it? I really appreciated the freedom of working in that way with posters and flyers, and Hell Gallery was our own space, so I was the little master of that domain and could do what I want with the flyers, and I would just have the parameters of the text of the exhibition and a little bit of information from the artist, but I wasn't kind of controlled in any way, and so it was just I'd never overthink things at all, and so I think that was a really important time in kind of just trying out all of these techniques and imagery and cherry picking from all of the stuff that I loved when I was a kid, and horror movies and poster artwork and book covers and all of that stuff. I didn't feel constrained in any way, but then it's like as I started to get these specific tools in my armory, or like kind of hone this methodology of creating the drawings, then it like started this natural funneling into this very rigid stylistic methodology, which I use now to compose the drawings. And it's great in one way, but it also is like I've built this cage for myself in terms of the rigidness and conformity and constraint of everything. Like, there's definitely stuff that I miss about those early days when and it's like my drawings just got in. It's like this natural entropic kind of machine-like drawing where it's like I've got the codes and it just all the block work and patterning just sort of comes out now in these kind of predefined codes or something. And so it's like it's still like just these certain parameters or constraints that I've kind of given myself, and I get to like kind of play around and push these constraints as much as I can. But yeah, it's still very much a stylistic cage. I don't know, that doesn't sound very good.
It's also your sort of very unique visual language as well, that I feel like you funneled it in, and once it clicked, it really clicked, and all those, the language and all the alphabet that you use to pull together and create this amazing world, which is unmistakably yours as well. Like it's your domain, you can really tell when you see one of your works. I guess one of the things that you've done over a number of years now, and maybe breaking out of that cage, is to collaborate with other artists and your mum, and to sort of push the boundaries of that 2D practice into the virtual world as well. I want to talk a little bit about how that came about.
Yeah, all the collaborations I do, that definitely provides me with new blood or something. Where the collaborations, my main collaborator is Simon Ward, who's a New Zealand-based video artist, and I've been working with him since 2013. And together we sort of moved the drawings into animations and virtual realities. And then when we have shown in galleries and institutions and we've had the resources, it's also moved into these big immersive installation environments, which houses all of the different mediums of my work. So it's and how I ended up collaborating with Simon was I think I'd been drawing the world only for a couple of years, I guess, and Simon's background, he works in like kind of there's a big film industry in New Zealand, and he was working on Lord of the Rings and Avatar and all of that, but he also made music videos in his spare time, well, not his spare time, just on the side, for a bunch of New Zealand bands that I was fans of, and so I was very familiar with his music videos, which had this very idiosyncratic sort of fantastical DIY element to them. And I didn't know him personally, but we had mutual friends, and through mutual friends I found out that he was a fan of my drawings and had made noises about wanting to, or thinking they had this great potential to be animated. And so we basically got set up by some mutual friends who, you know, were both too kind of shy to talk to each other. And our friend Rose did an email introduction to us both and said, you guys should work together. And then we did as soon as we met. That was really interesting for me, because drawing had always been a very solitary activity. which I really preferred. I loved being able to go into a studio and shut the door and just have control over everything in there. And I'd never really, I hadn't considered opening that up to other people until I met Simon. But yeah, we just had a really great just similarities in our upbringing and the stuff we're into, and our work ethic, and well, not work ethic, just our work approach and all of that. And yeah, it's always been very seamless working together. And then he's got like this incredible crew of New Zealanders who we're all friends with, and they all work on our projects together. And then Andrew Clark, who makes the soundtracks for our stuff, he's another New Zealander, but he's based in Melbourne. It's like our wider team consists of like several people, and people come in and out, and yeah, it's just really rewarding getting to make work with your friends. And then from there, I also kind of dabbled in like fashion stuff with a Australian fashion label called Romance Was Born. And so then like all of the imagery of the drawing got translated into clothing, like some wearable stuff, but a lot of very fantastical costumes as well. That was incredibly satisfying for me to see like these artifacts from this imagined world, like made real. And then I started collaborating with my mum in 2018 on quilts together, where she was I was making like these new sort of digital compositions and getting them printed on fabrics, and then sending them from New York to mum in New Zealand, and then we'd have Skype get-togethers and start working out the composition of quilts, and we'd do a lot of back and forth on video chat, and that's been a really fruitful project as well, both for the personal rewards, like getting to do something with your mum, and kind of interacting in this completely different way as artists and collaborators in a way that I'd never had that type of relationship with my mum before. So that's been a real learning thing. So it's like the drawings, which it's still a very solitary thing, which I do during the day, but all of the drawings just kind of get sent out and remade into these different mediums, and it all gets filtered through other people's imaginations, and then what comes out the other end kind of gets to be fed back into my drawings, and it just kind of allows all of this growth, which I wouldn't necessarily get if I was just kind of stuck in my own tunnel.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I read that you're working on a short film.
Yeah. We've got there's two big projects we're working on at the moment with Simon. One's a short film, and another is another VR experience, which we're trying to do both these things simultaneously. It's a bit hard kind of working on two major projects at the same time, because I think both me and Simon tend to like kind of want to vortex into the one thing, so it's a bit scattered, having to go back and forth. And also, I mean, there's been a lot of hiccups in our plans. Like we're supposed to be working on the short film last year on a joint residency at Pioneer Works in Brooklyn that was awarded to both me and Simon, but for some mysterious reason the US government kept on denying Simon's visa to come to America. So he applied 3 different times, kept getting rejected. He couldn't do the residency, and then finally we also got asked to present our work at the South by Southwest Festival in Texas this year. And so he applied for another visa to come to do that, and it was granted. And then he was going to come to New York afterwards for several weeks, and we were finally going to start working on this film. And also the VR project that we're doing, that's getting produced by Darren Aronofsky's company called Protozoa. So we're going to be working on that when we're here as well. And then I think Simon got on the plane, and it was like, you know, the pandemic was kicking off, but it was still, obviously. Anyway, he got to America. South by Southwest got cancelled the next day. He came to New York, and then I think lockdown started happening very quickly, and Pioneer Works got shut, whereas we were going to be working. And he basically spent, I think, 8 days here, which is housed in my apartment. Well, he just understandably wanted to hightail it back to New Zealand, so he went back to New Zealand. And then we've just been trying to work remotely since then. Yeah, that was a mouthful. Sorry, Danny.
No, that's all right, Jess. And I guess, it's the pandemic is obviously affecting everyone across the globe. It's it's interesting to hear how, I guess, a lot of opportunities have been missed or delayed or pushed back, and quite a challenging situation to be in when you're trying to collaborate with someone, that you sort of forced to do that externally. Has it presented any other sort of opportunities over the last little bit? I know it's obviously pretty tough over there, just living in a city that's sort of so massive and had a number of sort of lockdowns. But how have you been going? How have you adapted to I guess your work is very solitary anyway when you work on the drawings, but how's everything been going over the last few months in particular?
I think, like everyone, there's been weird emotional cycles that you go through. So I think early on in New York, when it was a really bad situation here, I felt like an immense pull to run away and try to get back to New Zealand, where my parents are and extended family. And so I was very torn for that initial period. Everyone was really worried about how things were going to pan out here. It was pretty strange in the city. But I decided to stay and set up a little drawing area just in this room that I'm in here. I think just having drawing to do every day kind of has been very, it's been one of the most, the grounding things, or things that I can resort to just to have that structure and routine, which has been really important through it all. Then of course there was the upheaval, the current upheaval, and the murder of George Floyd and the Black Lives Matter protests. And then, it's been a huge social uprising over here. So it's not been a time where I've just wanted to bury myself in my drawing and try to block out the world. Like it's, but yeah, so it's been when I've needed it, it's been a real balm to have that drawing, but it's also I can't ignore what's going out in the city as well. So it hasn't been strong enough to kind of block out the whole world. I don't really know what I'm saying.
Well, it's just tricky, isn't it? It's like you find solace in the drawing in particular, but so much social and political sort of upheaval going on, especially across America. It's hard to, no one wants to block that out. You want to be involved and support that. So it's very, very difficult.
Yeah, so at the moment, there's kind of relative calm out there. And yeah, I'm going to see out the summer here, see what that brings. The elections in early November. Not really looking forward to that, but I'm still aiming to get back to New Zealand in December. So I have to do the 2 weeks quarantine and then hopefully be out by Christmas and can see my long-suffering parents. So yeah, so that's kind of the little carrot on the stick that's been dangling in my mind's eye to get me through, is getting to go back to New Zealand in December.
Oh, that's pretty nice thing to aim for and have in the future.
Yeah. And I'm very fortunate to have that as an option as well.
Yeah. We're nearly sort of finished up. I just wanted to, I know you've touched a little bit on some of the residencies that you've been involved in particular at Gertrude Street early on, and Green Street, which the Australia Council used to run over in New York. I feel like you've been really well suited or well matched to a lot of residencies around the world. Do you want to talk about some of the other residency projects that you've been involved in over the last couple of years?
Sure, yeah. I think the first residency I did, which I mentioned, was in Japan at Tokyo Wonder Site. That was a really special one for me because that was my first experience of that type of residency program where you're very you're very nurtured and supported and just given this space and freedom and time to just go really deep into what you want to go into. So I think for myself, I've mainly used residencies as an opportunity to just get really deep into a body of work. And I think, other people might do residencies to research or experience something in the city that they're in, but I tend to just kind of, go real hard out in the studio. But some other special ones. I went to Edinburgh with Simon in 2016, and that was to do an exhibition at the Talbot Rice Gallery, which was part of the University of Edinburgh, and that was, we got a little bit of funding to do that, and initially we were just going to set up the show. We were showing like VR work and some drawings and making this environment, but we tried to stretch it out as much as we could, and ended up staying for several weeks and doing a mini residency there, which they just put together for us. They had this this kind of attic studio space, which was behind a giant clock on the exterior of the building, and we were basically in this big long room behind the machinations of this giant clock, which had a very loud tick. So we're like working inside a grandfather clock if we were mining something like that. And yeah, the university were really, and the gallery staff were really really great to us there. That was a really special time. At one stage, the university allowed us to go through their collection, and I've got as we've talked about, I've got a special interest in this Italian artist who lived in Edinburgh called, how do you pronounce his name, Danny?
I'll probably get it wrong. Edoardo Palizzi.
Yeah, I can't. Palizzi. Yeah. Yeah. And they had the remnants of this iconic mosaic which he had designed for the London Tube, and I'm not sure when this had happened, but it basically got jackhammered off the walls of the tube station, and the university stepped in to preserve the remnants. And so when I got to go through them, it was basically just this vast number of these plastic tubs with all of these shattered mosaics in it, which they had been carefully collating, and with the intention that eventually it was going to get put back together in this insane jigsaw puzzle at one stage. Another residency that I did in 2016 as well. God, it was. That was a big year too, because I moved to New York, did the Green Street residency, and then I did a residency for, it was 11 international artists working around themes of science fiction, and that was at the organization's called Bemis, and it's in Nebraska, which is like right in the middle of the USA. And so we were housed in this big brick industrial factory with not much to do in Nebraska for 3 months. So we had it was a kind of a very bonding experience for all of us. We just had lots of movie nights of films. Trump got elected while we were in Nebraska. It was very strange. Since then I've done residencies at ICP in New York and Pioneer Works as well, which is in Red Hook where I live now. One of the most special things that you can do as an artist. I get a huge amount out of them.
Well, I think that's just about it. We're about out of time. So thanks so much for joining me on MPRG TV. It's been so nice just to talk to you a bit about your work and everything. So look after yourself. I hope you get back to New Zealand later in the year, and I hope the cats on the streets of New York are all looking after themselves. Yeah, there's actually a feral colony of cats in Red Hook, which I'm there. I'm managing at the moment. That's what it's called. So which means I'm their feeder, official feeder. So yeah, that's been keeping me busy during lockdown, as well as looking after all of the very, very many stray cats in Red Hook. Yeah. Cool. But I hope we can be on the same soil again sometime, Danny. Yeah, it'd be great to catch up, and looking forward to working with you again in the future as well. There's a few little projects that we've been discussing, so hopefully we can pull a couple of those together. It'd be really exciting. Beautiful. Thanks, Jess. Yeah, look after yourself.
Will do.
Thank you.